Across the ruins of time, a whisper still echoes, a memory carried in fractured stone, fading murals, and forgotten roads. Ancient pillars, worn by centuries of wind and war, still stand as silent guardians, watching over the remains of a civilization that reshaped the fate of continents. This is the story of Rome, how a tiny settlement on the banks of the Tiber River rose from obscurity, forged by kings, steeled by republic, and crowned by empire. Its legions carved a path across mountains, deserts, and seas. Its laws laid the foundations of justice. Its languages shaped the tongues of nations. Its architecture inspired the skylines of the modern world. Its ideas echo in our cities, our religions, our governments, and in the stories we still tell. Rome may have fallen, but its shadow endures, alive in the world we inherit every day. Rome's earliest story is not a history, but a legend, a myth whispered around fires, carved into marble, and carried through generations. It is the tale that Roman citizens believed defined them, a story of divine blood, survival, rivalry, and destiny. Two twins, Romulus and Remus, born of Mars, god of war and guardian of empires. Their birth was seen as an omen, a spark of greatness in an age of chaos. Yet power feared them. They were seized at birth, condemned, and cast into the cold waters of the Tiber River. But fate refused to let them die. The river gently delivered them to safety, into the silent forest at the foot of the Palatine Hill. There, beneath ancient oaks, a she-wolf found the crying infants, and in a moment that would echo through eternity, she nursed and protected them as her own. Raised by a humble shepherd and his wife, the twins grew strong, hunters, fighters, leaders. But destiny rarely unites great men forever. Ambition carved a line between them. What began as brotherhood ended as a struggle for the right to build a city that would one day rule the world. This is the beginning of Rome, forged not only from stone and blood, but from myth, rivalry, and a brother's final choice. The day that would define a civilization began in turmoil. Two brothers, Romulus and Remus, stood divided, their bond shattered by pride, vision, and destiny. The city they dreamed of building together became the battlefield on which their final choice would be made. Remus mocked the sacred boundary Romulus marked, stepping across it in defiance. To the Romans, this was no simple insult. It was a challenge to fate itself. Tension crackled like lightning over the bare earth. In a moment of fury, fear and destiny intertwined, Romulus struck. Steel clashed, dust rose, and the cries of the twins echoed across the hills that would one day become the heart of an empire. When the dust settled, Remus lay still. Romulus, trembling, stood over his fallen brother, victor, survivor, founder. And from that act of blood and grief, Rome drew its first breath, a warning to all who followed. Greatness is never given freely. It is carved from sacrifice, conflict, and unyielding will. In blood, Rome was born, and in struggle it learned to endure. Long before Rome became myth, before the birth of Romulus and Remus, the Palatine Hill was already alive with human ambition. Archaeologists have uncovered traces of simple huts and fire pits, settlements dating back to around 1000 BC. A small world of farmers and herders overlooking the slow bend of the Tiber River. From these humble beginnings grew a community shaped by many cultures. Latin tribes from the south, Sabine families from the hills, and Etruscan influences sweeping down from the north, all converged on the 7 hills, mixing traditions, languages, and beliefs. Excavated pottery, bronze tools, and ritual objects reveal a people skilled in trade, farming, and craftsmanship. But the graves tell an even deeper story. Warriors buried with spears, shields, and ornaments of status. Evidence of a society that valued strength, honor, and protection. Behind the legend of Rome's divine origins stood real people, farmers tending their fields, warriors defending their homes, traders crossing rivers and roads, a rugged, determined community forging the foundations of what would become the world's greatest empire. Before Rome became a republic, before it conquered continents, it was shaped by 7 rulers whose hands molded its earliest identity. These kings forged the city's spirit, its rituals, its defenses, and the very foundations on which Rome's greatness would later rise. Under Numa Pompilius, Rome learned discipline of the soul. He crafted sacred rites, established priestly orders, and bound the city not only by law, but by ritual and reverence. The heartbeat of Roman religion began with him. Then came Servius Tullius, a visionary of infrastructure and order. He expanded Rome's borders, built walls that embraced the 7 hills, created new social classes, and unified the people under a structured census. Streets, defenses, and civic organization, his designs gave Rome form. But the monarchy reached its breaking point under Tarquinius Superbus. Ambition shifted into tyranny. Massive building projects rose alongside fear and oppression. The people who once followed their kings now longed for freedom. Rome's monarchy was never merely political. It was spiritual, infrastructural, foundational, a crucible in which identity, culture, and ambition fused. And everything that came after, the Republic, the legions, the empire, was built upon the stones these early kings carved into the earth. By the late 6th century BC, Rome stood at a breaking point. Tarquinius Superbus, Tarquin the Proud, ruled not with justice, but with fear, coercion, and ruthless ambition. His tyranny weighed upon Rome's noble families, its warriors, and its common citizens alike.
Whispers of revolt grew into a fire that could no longer be contained. The outrage sparked by the tragedy of Lucretia united Rome's leading houses. Lucius Junius Brutus, Collatinus, and others rose to defy their king, swearing that no Roman would ever again bow to a tyrant. Armies marched, alliances fractured. Tarquinius attempted to seize his throne by force, but the people stood firm. At last, the gates of Rome closed behind him, and the age of kings came to its end. In 509 BC, Rome did something revolutionary. It rejected kingship and dared to invent a new political experiment, the Republic. No single ruler, no inherited throne, only magistrates appointed by the people, laws constrained by checks and balances, and a promise that power must serve the state, not dominate it. From the ashes of tyranny rose a system that would shape the destiny of nations for millennia. After casting off its kings, Rome stood at a crossroads. No throne, no monarch, no single ruler to command loyalty or fear. In this vacuum, the Romans built something new. A system woven from compromise, ambition, rivalry, and fragile cooperation. At its heart stood the Senate, an aristocratic council of elder statesmen. They advised on foreign wars, controlled finances, and guided policy. Their lifetime appointments ensured continuity, a memory that stretched across generations. Beside them were the consuls, 2 men elected every year, co-equal leaders, each holding supreme authority, yet each able to veto the other. They led Rome's armies, governed its territories, and embodied the Republic's belief that no single voice should rule unchallenged. Below them gathered the assemblies, citizens voting in tribes and classes. Slowly, painfully, these bodies expanded to include the plebeians, giving ordinary Romans a growing voice in law and leadership. This entire system functioned on a single principle: balance. Power restrained power. Ambition clashed with ambition. And from these tensions came a stability unlike anything the world had seen. Rome's genius was not in perfection, but in equilibrium. No single man could dominate, at least not yet. Rome's republic was a miracle of balance, but that balance was never equal. At the top stood the patricians, the old aristocratic families who controlled the Senate, the priesthoods, and the highest offices. Below them stood the plebeians, the farmers, soldiers, laborers, and craftsmen, whose sweat and blood defended Rome, but who had little voice in its government. Tension simmered until it exploded. In a bold act of defiance, the plebeians walked out of the city, leaving Rome without its workforce, its soldiers, and its lifeblood. This moment, known as the conflict of the orders, forced the patricians to negotiate. From this confrontation came a breakthrough, the creation of the tribune of the plebs,
a sacred office empowered to defend ordinary citizens and veto injustice. But the struggle did not end there. The plebeians demanded laws that everyone could know, laws written, not whispered. Thus came the 12 Tables, Rome's first public legal code, etched in bronze and displayed for all to see. Step by step, decade by decade, plebeians gained the right to hold office, to marry into patrician families, and to share in the responsibilities of the state.
Rome's lower classes did not win equality overnight. They fought, negotiated, and redefined power, laying the foundation of a society where citizenship mattered more than birth.
By the mid-3rd century BC, Rome had risen from a regional power to the unchallenged master of the Italian peninsula. But across the narrow strait that separated Italy from Sicily lay another titan, a civilization older, wealthier, and far more experienced in the art of empire. This was Carthage, mistress of the seas, heir to the great Phoenician merchant kingdoms, and ruler of a maritime empire stretching from North Africa to Spain and across the islands of the western Mediterranean. Sicily, rich, fertile, strategically vital, stood between these two rising giants. Its ports and trade routes were the keys to controlling the entire region. Carthage possessed bustling harbors filled with towering ships, a navy unmatched in size and skill, and armies led by seasoned generals and disciplined mercenaries. Their wealth flowed from commerce, spices, metals, dyes, grain, linking them to civilizations from Iberia to the Near East. Rome, by contrast, was a land power, its strength rooted in its legions, discipline, and unbreakable citizen military structure. But as Rome expanded, it could no longer ignore the sea or the power that ruled it. Two empires, two systems, two destinies. Both claimed Sicily. Both refused to yield. Their collision was not an accident. It was inevitable. And from it began the longest and largest naval war the ancient world had ever seen. The First Punic War. Rome entered the First Punic War with a fatal disadvantage. It had no navy. For generations, the Romans had looked inward, fighting on land, expanding through Italy, and trusting others, Greek cities, allies, traitors, to command the sea for them. But facing Carthage, the masters of Mediterranean waters, Rome had no choice. If it wanted Sicily, if it wanted security, if it wanted victory, it would have to learn to fight on the waves. What came next was astonishing. After capturing a single Carthaginian warship, a quinquereme, Roman engineers dismantled it, studied it, measured it, and reproduced it plank by plank. Thousands of workers swarmed the new shipyards, felling forests, shaping timbers, forging nails, stitching sails. In a matter of months, Months, not years, Rome launched an entire fleet, more than 100 warships, each modeled on the enemy's own design. But Rome knew it could never outsail Carthage, so it changed the rules of naval warfare. The Romans invented the corvus, a massive boarding bridge with an iron spike at its tip. When it crashed onto an enemy deck, Roman infantry surged across, turning sea battles into the ground combat they mastered. At sea, Rome fought as if on land, and it worked. A land empire was learning to command the waves. The First Punic War raged for more than 2 decades, a contest of endurance, innovation, and unbreakable will. Its story is written in storms, shattered ships, and the courage of tens of thousands who fought upon the sea. Mylae, 260 BC. The first great test came at Mylae. Carthage believed Rome would crumble at sea, but Rome unveiled its new weapon, the corvus. When Roman infantry stormed across the boarding bridges, Carthaginian crews were stunned. For the first time, Rome defeated Carthage in a naval battle. Mylae proved Rome could dominate the waves. Cape Ecnomus, 256 BC. 6 years later came Cape Ecnomus, one of the largest naval battles in human history. Hundreds of warships collided in a deafening storm of wood, bronze, and fire. Legions fought hand-to-hand on swaying decks as fleets struggled for control. Rome emerged battered but victorious, opening the path for an invasion of North Africa. Africa Campaign, Disaster and Rebirth. The African campaign began with hope, then collapsed in disaster. Roman armies were destroyed, consuls killed, fleets wrecked by storms. Yet Rome did not break. Citizens donated money, temples melted sacred bronze, and shipyards roared back to life. A new fleet rose from ruin, stronger than before. Agates Islands, 241 BC. The final clash came at the Agates Islands. Roman ships, rebuilt and redesigned for speed, slammed into the Carthaginian relief fleet. Outmaneuvered, outmatched, and exhausted, Carthage's navy collapsed. After 23 years of blood and shipwreck, Rome stood victorious. The peace terms were brutal. Carthage paid a crushing indemnity. Rome seized Sicily, its first overseas province. And in the wake of its greatest naval triumph, Rome emerged not only as a land power, but as the new master of the Mediterranean. In the dim glow of flickering temple firelight, a boy stands before a great altar of stone. The scent of burnt offerings thickens the air. Priests in long robes chant ancient Punic invocations as the god Baal Hammon is called to witness. The boy is Hannibal, son of Hamilcar Barca, the warrior who had fought Rome and tasted defeat but not surrender. Hamilcar kneels beside his son, gripping his shoulder with the intensity of a man forged by war. "Swear it," he commands, not as a father, but as a general. Hannibal places his small hand upon the warm, blood-stained altar. He vows to the gods, to his father, and to Carthage itself, that he will never be a friend to Rome, that he will finish what his father began, that he will dedicate his life to the downfall of the rising republic across the sea. In that moment, a child becomes a weapon. A promise becomes a destiny. And the greatest threat Rome would ever face is born. The mountains rise like jagged teeth against a frozen sky. Winds scream across the ridges, carrying ice like blades. To most armies, these peaks are death. To Hannibal, they are the road to Rome. With 40,000 infantry, thousands of cavalry, and a column of towering North African war elephants, the Carthaginian general begins an ascent no sane commander would dare. The path is narrow. One misstep means a plunge into the clouds below. Snow blinds, frost cracks armor. Men slip, horses fall, supply carts splinter on rocks. Tribes of mountain warriors hurl stones from above, silent ghosts in white. Elephants trumpet through the storm, giant shadows forced step by step toward the summit. Food runs thin. Frostbite blackens fingers and toes, yet still they climb. For 16 brutal days, Hannibal fights not armies, but nature itself. Ice, cold, hunger, gravity. By the time the surviving army descends into Italy, they are fewer, scarred, hardened beyond belief. But they carry with them something more powerful than numbers, the knowledge that they have conquered the unconquerable. At 29 years old, Hannibal Barca reshaped the world's idea of war. Not with a battle, but with a crossing. Hannibal attempted the impossible, not by sea, but by marching across the roof of the world. The snow of the Alps had barely melted from their cloaks when Hannibal struck. Rome expected a broken, exhausted foreign army. Instead, they met something else, a predator born from fire, frost, and fury. Trabia, 218 BC. On the frozen plains south of the Po River, Roman legions waded across icy waters to attack. Hannibal waited. Hidden in the reeds, his brother Mago launched a surprise assault from the flank. Roman discipline shattered against African cavalry, Iberian infantry, and towering war elephants. Thousands drowned, froze, or fell beneath spears. Rome's pride was wounded, But worse was coming. Lake Trasimene, 217 B.C. A thick morning fog rolled across the water like a shroud. The Roman consul Flaminius marched blindly into a valley. Hannibal was already there, invisible in the mist. On his signal, an army erupted from hills and tree line, striking from all sides at once. It was chaos, muffled screams swallowed by the fog. The largest ambush in ancient history. An entire Roman army crushed. Rome reeled. Panic replaced confidence. But still, Hannibal advanced. Cannae, 216 B.C. Here, on the dusty plains of Apulia, came the nightmare. Rome sent its greatest force ever assembled, over 80,000 men, shoulder to shoulder, confident in brute strength. Hannibal welcomed them with open arms, literally. He allowed the center of his line to bend, to curve inward, drawing Rome deeper and deeper, like prey caught in a closing fist. Then the trap snapped shut. African infantry smashed into the flanks. Carthaginian cavalry swept around from behind. The Roman army was surrounded, a perfect double envelopment, still taught in war colleges today. There was nowhere to run, nowhere to breathe. The ground turned red. 70,000 Romans lay dead. Consuls, senators, nobles, annihilated in a single day. Cannae was a slaughter unparalleled, a masterpiece of tactical genius. Cannae should have been the end. 70,000 Romans dead, 2 consuls lost, entire legions erased from existence. The road to Rome lay open, and still the Republic did not fall. Grief turned to iron, fear hardened into resolve. In the face of catastrophe, the Senate made a decision that stunned the ancient world. Rome would not negotiate. Rome would not bow. Instead, they chose patience, dangerous, disciplined, ruthless patience. This new strategy did not come from a hero of the battlefield, but from a man mocked for caution. Quintus Fabius Maximus, the Cunctator, the delayer. He refused Hannibal the battles he craved. He shadowed the Carthaginian army like a wolf, striking only at supply lines and foragers. Burned fields denied Hannibal food. Scorched earth forced him to march hungry. No glorious victories, only slow, grinding suffocation. Hannibal won battles, but Rome began winning time. The Republic rebuilt, recruited new armies, forged new generals. Against all logic, Rome endured. Any other nation would have begged for peace. Rome did not. The war that had begun with fire in the Alps now nears its end beneath the African sun. Years have passed since Cannae. Rome endured the storms Hannibal unleashed, rebuilt its legions, and forged a new commander, Publius Cornelius Scipio, a young general sharpened by loss, fueled by vision. Instead of waiting for Hannibal to strike again, Scipio does the unthinkable. He brings the war to Africa. His legions land on Carthaginian soil, iron and red banners glinting against golden plains and desert wind. He defeats Carthage's armies at Campi Magni, breaks their alliances, forces Hannibal home. For the first time, the two greatest commanders of the age face each other across one battlefield. Zama, 220 BC. The earth trembles as war elephants charge, a living wall of tusks and fury. But Scipio's legions open corridors like gates. The elephants thunder harmlessly through, swallowed by dust behind Roman lines. Then come the infantry, shield to shield. Javelins darken the sky. Spanish swords clash with Roman gladii. Numidian cavalry sweep the flanks like desert storms. At last, Scipio turns Hannibal's own tactic against him: encirclement. The Carthaginian line collapses. The legend of Cannae is reversed. Hannibal, undefeated until this day, withdraws from the field, his army broken. Carthage sues for peace. The price is brutal. Its fleet burned, its empire dissolved, its independence gone. Rome rises not merely as a victor, but as a power the world can no longer resist. Rome had defeated its greatest enemy and learned the art of empire. Carthago delenda est, the final war. A Senate hall shrouded in tension. Elder statesmen argue, voices echo beneath vaulted marble ceilings. An aging figure rises, stern, unyielding, Cato the Elder. His words cut through the chamber like iron on stone. Carthage must be destroyed. Carthago delenda est. Not once, but endlessly, at the end of every speech, every debate, no matter the topic. Grain imports, taxation, public works. His conclusion never changed. Carthage, though humbled by defeat, still traded, still grew wealthy, still existed. And to Rome that alone was a threat. Rome listened. The Siege of Carthage, 149 to 146 BC. Across the North African coastline, a walled city gleaming beneath the sun, proud yet waiting like a trapped animal. Roman legions gather on the plains beyond, siege engines creaking into place, red standards cracking in the wind. The war begins. 3 years of tightening pressure, hunger, fire, unrelenting assault. The sea blockade strangles trade. Fields burn. Carthaginians dig ditches, forge weapons from temple bronze. Women and children weaving slings and shields to defend their home. Urban war, a city in blood. Street combat at close quarters. Shields grind against shields. Pila thrusting from behind shattered walls. Flaming arrows arc over narrow streets. Buildings collapse into dust and screams. Families flee through smoke. Soldiers fight over corpses in alleyways slick with ash. Rome advances, inch by inch, through a labyrinth of stone. The last stand. Atop the Bursa citadel, survivors gather, exhausted, starving, but unbroken. Women clutch children. Warriors stand with broken spears, eyes fierce even in despair. The final assault begins. The fortress burns. After days of slaughter, the city falls silent, save for crackling fire and distant cries. Carthage is no more. Rome salts the earth, and Cato's words echo eternally. Carthago delenda est. Carthage must be destroyed. And so it was. The siege had lasted 3 brutal years, years of starvation, smoke, and unbroken defiance. Carthage, once queen of the western Mediterranean, fought street by street, rooftop by rooftop, as though every stone carried the weight of centuries. And yet, even courage cannot conquer exhaustion forever. For 3 years Carthage resisted, and then it was no more. Rome breached the final walls. The city burned for days, a rolling ocean of flame that devoured temples, homes, libraries, warehouses overflowing with grain and history. The sky turned black with ash, like a second night falling over Africa. The end came not with a final battle, but with silence. When the fires died, only ruins remained, skeletal columns, shattered gates, and the charred outline of a city that had once rivaled Rome. Survivors were gathered in chains, marched into slavery, scattered across the empire as captives of war. Carthage was erased. Rome annexed the land and named it Africa Proconsularis, the first permanent Roman province on African soil, fertile, wealthy, and now fully under Roman authority. And with the fall of Carthage, a transformation echoed across the world. With Carthage gone, Rome no longer had rivals. The Mediterranean became Mare Nostrum, our sea. What had once been a battleground of empires was now a Roman lake. The third and last Punic War was over. A superpower had emerged. Rome was unstoppable. Before a battle, the wind lies heavy with silence. Only the shuffle of iron, the tightening of straps, the low murmur of command. In the pale morning light, thousands of Roman soldiers assemble in precise formation. Shields gleam like scales of a gigantic creature. Standards rise. Orders echo down the line, crisp as hammer strike on steel. This is not chaos. This is not merely war. This is a system. A legion, nearly 4,000 men, divided with mathematical precision. 10 cohorts, each a pillar of Rome's war machine. Within those cohorts lie centuries, units of 80 men, each commanded by a single voice, a single will, the centurion, marked by the transverse crest of his helmet and scars earned through decades of service. But Rome's military wasn't born perfect. In the early Republic, soldiers fought in flexible maniples, agile blocks able to bend and respond like the joints of a body. Over centuries, the legion evolved, shifting into the more cohesive cohortal system of the empire, stronger, deeper, less breakable. Every soldier carried more than weapons. He carried discipline, identity, duty to Rome. The legion was not merely an army. It was a machine, drilled, disciplined, adaptable. A machine that would conquer 3 continents. The strength of Rome did not rest only in the battlefield. It lived in the discipline of ordinary days, in the shine of polished armor, the hiss of whetstone against steel, the rhythm of marching feet against the earth. Each soldier carried his world on his back. The lorica segmentata, plates of iron curved and fastened with brass fittings, flexible yet strong, a shell forged for endurance. At his hip hung the gladius, short, deadly, designed for thrusting in close combat. And in his hand the scutum, a curved rectangular shield, large enough to form walls and roofs of living iron. But a legionary was more than a weapon. He was a worker. At day's end, when other armies rested, Rome built. In under 4 hours, an entire fortified camp, ditches, ramparts, palisades, ordered tents in perfect grid. Every soldier knew his place. Every hammer strike echoed Rome's discipline. Life was routine, marching for miles under full pack, training with weighted weapons, digging ditches, gathering timber, standing night watch beneath cold stars. Disobedience meant lashes. Cowardice meant death. Yet behind this hardness lay identity, a citizen who earned his rights with sweat and steel. A Roman soldier was not just a fighter. He was a builder, an engineer, a laborer, a citizen with obligations. Rome did not triumph through numbers alone. It triumphed through thinking, through precision, preparation, and unbreakable organization. On the battlefield, Roman legions moved like a living machine. Shields locked edge to edge, glinting beneath the sun, they advanced as one impenetrable wall. The testudo, the tortoise formation, formed a shell of iron, roof above, rampart before. Arrows rattled harmlessly against curved shields like rain on tile. But Rome knew not only how to defend, it knew how to break cities. Siege warfare became its craft. Towers rolling across open ground, battering rams slamming into gates like thunder, miners tunneling beneath walls, sappers burning supports. Above the chaos, engines of war launched ruin through the sky. The ballista, a colossal bow of twisted sinew, sent iron bolts tearing through shields and flesh. The onager, named for a kicking mule, hurled stones that shattered walls and morale alike. Yet strategy alone could not hold an empire. It needed movement. Across mountains, rivers, deserts, Rome built roads, straight as spear shafts, paved with stone, crowned for drainage, so well engineered that many still survive. Columns of soldiers could march for miles a day. Supply trains brought food, weapons, horses, replacements. Granaries and depots turned conquered land into one vast network. Rome did not react to war. Rome prepared for it. Rome did not conquer by chance. Rome conquered because it mastered the art of war and the science of movement. The Roman Republic, once a system balanced by laws, tradition, and civic duty, now stands on a knife's edge. For centuries, its greatness rested on the shared burdens of citizens, on elected magistrates held in check by custom and fear of tyranny. But those days are fading. Its institutions, built for a small city-state on the banks of the Tiber, now strain beneath the weight of continents. Victory has brought Rome unimaginable wealth, gold, slaves, influence, but also corruption, inequality, and rage. The rich grow richer. The poor grow desperate. The Senate fights to preserve power, while generals win loyalty not from Rome, but from their armies. Rome is changing faster than its government can adapt, and in the widening cracks of the Republic, ambition begins to take root. This is the age of crises, the age of reformers and warlords, of riots in the streets and legions crossing forbidden rivers, the age where a republic, proud, ancient, unyielding, begins to break beneath its own greatness. This is the age that ends the Republic. Rome's problems begin with its success. What looked like victory on the battlefield becomes slow decay at home. Decades of conquest have reshaped the economy. Cities are filled with wealth, but also with those who cannot share in it. Slave labor floods the market, cheap and endless, pushing small farmers into ruin. The wealthy seize the opportunity, expanding their estates into vast latifundia, swallowing the countryside piece by piece. Veterans, once promised land for their service, return to find their farms gone, their futures uncertain, their loyalty shifting. Rome grows dark, streets narrow and overcrowded, children cry in smoke-filled insulae. Urban slums swell with the desperate and the hungry. Unemployment spreads like plague. Crime festers. Hope thins. The Senate, proud, conservative, unbending, refuses to act. Its members defend privilege, not people. They debate, they delay, while Rome begins to rot. Tensions rise, violence grows, the Republic trembles, not from foreign enemies, but from within. And into this storm walk two brothers, brothers who believe Rome can still be saved. In a republic trembling under inequality and unrest, two brothers step forward. They believe Rome can change. They believe Rome must change. Tiberius Gracchus, a young principled tribune of the people, offers a simple idea. Restore state land to the poor who once defended Rome. Not a revolution of swords, but of law. But land means power, and power lies with Rome's great families. This reform, modest in words, threatens fortunes built on conquest and slaves. Tiberius bypasses the Senate. He takes the question not to the elite, but to the people. The Senate calls it treason. And then comes the moment Rome will never forget. A mob of senators storms the Capitol. No trial, no law, just rage. Tiberius Gracchus is beaten to death, clubbed by senators with chairs and broken table legs. A tribune of the people, slain by the guardians of the Republic. The Republic has crossed a line. Debate has become murder. But the cause does not die. Gaius Gracchus, brother of Tiberius, takes up the torch. Not cautiously, boldly. He pushes further. Grain for the poor, to calm hunger. Courts free from senatorial control, to weaken corruption. New colonies for Rome's dispossessed. But in the Senate, faces are pale with fear. To them, Gaius is not a reformer. He is a threat, a second revolution. Violence erupts, and the Senate invokes a chilling measure, the Senatus Consultum Ultimum, a final decree granting magistrates absolute power. Gaius Gracchus chooses death rather than capture, falling by friendly hand on a bridge by the Tiber. His followers, loyal to the end, are hunted down and slaughtered. The message resounds through Rome. Reform now demands blood. From the chaos of the late Republic rises Marius, soldier, reformer, champion of the masses. A man of humble birth, yet towering ambition. His great reform rewrites the rules of war. No longer must a man own land to serve Rome. Now the poor, the desperate, the forgotten may march beneath the eagle. The army becomes Rome's sharpest blade. But it also becomes something new, a weapon loyal not to the Republic, but to the commander who feeds, pays, and leads it. A seed is planted. It will grow into civil war. Opposite him stands Lucius Cornelius Sulla, patrician by birth, ruthless by necessity. Charming, brilliant, merciless. A man who believes Rome must be ruled, not pleaded with. Their rivalry sparks like flint against steel. Then comes the moment the Republic feared and never imagined. Sulla marches his army on Rome itself. Shields glint in torchlight, the sacred pomerium is crossed, a taboo shattered. Marius rallies loyal legions, refusing to bow. Rome becomes battlefield, streets paved with blood. Victory changing hands again and again. Sulla prevails, and in his victory he does not forgive. Sulla is declared dictator. A red ink list is posted in the forum. The proscriptions begin, names inked in death's ledger. Men stripped of rights, hunted like animals, their wealth seized, their families broken. Assassins stalk the streets, heads displayed on the rostra. Rome watches, horrified, silent. When Sulla resigns, he claims the Republic is restored. But the illusion fools no one. Power has learned it can be taken by force, and once taken, can shape the world. From Marius and Sulla comes a new Rome, strong, violent, unstable. A republic fractured beyond repair. Rome breathes again after the terror of the proscriptions, but the air is thin, poisonous. Power is no longer earned by honor or election, but seized through force, wealth, and fear. Into this fractured republic step three men, ambitious, brilliant, hungry. Together, they will rule. Together, they will destroy each other. Caesar, charming, daring, adored by the crowds, a soldier who dreams of glory, a politician who understands that popularity is power. Pompey, conqueror of the East, hero of countless wars, a general worshipped by his legions and feared by his enemies. But Rome rewards him with suspicion instead of gratitude. Crassus, wealth beyond measure, ambition beyond wealth. He buys influence like others buy bread. But coin alone cannot command respect. He needs power. 3 men, Caesar, Pompey, Crassus. Different strengths, different goals. One solution. They form an alliance the Senate cannot stop, the first triumvirate. Caesar becomes consul, pushing laws with popular fury. Pompey gains land for his veterans and honors for his campaigns. Crassus secures business privileges and eastern command. Together, they dominate Rome. No decree passes without their blessing. No enemy rises without being crushed. The Republic lives in their shadow. But alliances built on ambition are fragile. Crassus seeks glory in Parthia and dies. Pompey grows jealous of Caesar's rising fame, and Caesar marches deeper into Gaul, winning victories that echo across the world. The triumvirate becomes 2, then, inevitably, 1 against 1. The first triumvirate is dead. Crassus lies in Parthia. Pompey aligns himself with the Senate. And Caesar stands at the height of his power, adored by his legions, feared by the elite. After 10 years of conquest in Gaul, Caesar returns not as a politician, but as a warlord with the greatest army Rome has ever seen. The Senate demands he disband his legions before returning to Rome. Without an army, he will be tried, stripped of power, destroyed. A death sentence wrapped in law. Caesar faces a choice: obey and fall, or defy and unleash civil war. He decides Rome's fate on a single night. The Rubicon, the sacred boundary no general may cross with an army. To cross it is treason. To cross it is war. He utters the words that will echo through history. Alea iacta est. The die is cast. He steps forward. The legion follows. Rome has crossed a point of no return. Panic floods Rome. Pompey and the Senate flee the city, believing Caesar comes with vengeance. Without a single battle, Caesar takes Rome. But the war is only beginning. The world becomes battlefield. Italy, Spain, Greece, Africa. Brother fighting brother. Legion against legion. Because when Caesar crossed the Rubicon, he did more than defy the Senate. He broke the Republic's last illusion, that power obeys the law. The year is 49 BC. Rome stands divided. Pompey the Great commands the loyalty of the Senate and much of the aristocracy. Julius Caesar commands something far more dangerous, the unwavering devotion of his legions. When the Senate, under Pompey's influence, orders Caesar to disband his army and return to Rome as a private citizen, they know exactly what they are demanding. Without his soldiers, Caesar would be defenseless and likely prosecuted, exiled, or worse. Caesar understands the stakes. On a cold winter night, he stands at the banks of a shallow, unremarkable stream, the Rubicon, the legal border he is forbidden to cross with an army. He pauses, he thinks. The fate of Rome balances on his decision. Then he speaks the words that will echo through history. Alea jacta est. The die is cast. With that, he leads his legion across the Rubicon. A single step that ignites a civil war. When news reaches Rome, panic spreads like wildfire. Pompey and the Senate evacuate the city, retreating across the Adriatic to gather forces in Greece. Caesar enters Rome unopposed, not as a conqueror, but as a man moving through the ruins of political trust. The Republic is no longer ruled by laws. It is ruled by armies. Caesar knows he must move quickly. He secures the treasury, stabilizes the city, and launches a rapid campaign against Pompey. In 48 BC, on the dusty plains of Pharsalus, the two greatest generals of their age finally collide. Caesar's troops are outnumbered, but not outmatched. Pompey fights conservatively, relying on his massive cavalry. Caesar, calm as ever, reveals a hidden fourth line of infantry, trained specifically to break Pompey's horsemen. The battle becomes a rout. As Pompey's army collapses, he flees across the Mediterranean, seeking refuge in Egypt. But the Ptolemaic court fears Caesar's wrath and offers Pompey a gift to earn favor. They assassinate him on the shores of Alexandria. A general, a statesman, a titan of Rome, cut down by foreign hands. When Caesar arrives and is shown Pompey's severed head, he weeps, not only for his rival, but for the republic both men helped destroy. The war does not end with Pompey. Caesar marches across the Mediterranean world, Egypt, Pontus, Africa, Spain, crushing resistance wherever it rises. He defeats Pharnaces in a lightning war, summarizing the victory in 3 immortal words: Veni, Vidi, Vici. I came, I saw, I conquered. By 45 BC, the civil wars are over. Caesar returns to Rome as the most powerful man the Republic has ever seen. He is named dictator, not for months, but for years. Then, eventually, for life. The Senate still exists. Elections still occur. But the old republic, the republic of checks, balances, and shared power, is gone. A single man now stands at the center of the Roman world, and many fear what he might become. As Caesar's power grows, so does the anxiety of Rome's elite. Some see him as a savior who brought stability after decades of chaos. Others see a tyrant in all but name. A conspiracy forms, senators, former allies, even friends, bound by a belief that Caesar must die to save the Republic. On the Ides of March, 44 BC, they strike. Caesar falls beneath a flurry of blades at the foot of Pompey's own statue. Blood pools on the Senate floor. The conspirators raise their swords, believing they have restored freedom. Instead, they unleash yet another civil war, one that will finish what Sulla and Caesar began. The Republic is dying, and its final breath is still to come. The Ides of March has come and gone, but the assassin's dream of restoring the Republic collapses almost immediately. Rome does not celebrate Caesar's death. Rome trembles. Marcus Junius Brutus and Gaius Cassius, the leaders of the conspiracy, expected to be hailed as liberators. Instead, they find themselves surrounded by suspicion, outrage, and fear. The people mourn Caesar. The soldiers mourn him even more. The streets churn with riots, torches, and angry crowds demanding justice. In this charged atmosphere, one man steps forward. Gaius Julius Caesar Octavianus, Octavian, Caesar's adopted son and heir. Barely 18, frail, untested, underestimated. But behind his calm exterior burns something far more dangerous than youth, ambition sharpened by patience. At the same time, Marcus Antonius, Antony, Caesar's loyal lieutenant, commands immense influence. He controls Caesar's papers, Caesar's veterans, and much of the public sympathy after delivering a fiery funeral oration that turns the city against the assassins. Rome now has two claimants to Caesar's legacy: Antony, the proven soldier; Octavian, the legal heir. They dislike each other instantly. But both know one truth: the Republic is gone, and only power matters now. As chaos spreads, a third figure emerges. Marcus Aemilius Lepidus, Caesar's master of horse, who controls vital legions in Gaul and Spain. The three men meet secretly near Bologna. For 2 days and nights they argue, threaten, negotiate, and finally agree on something unprecedented. They will not restore the Republic. They will rule it together. In November of 43 BC, they create the Second Triumvirate, legally empowered to reorder the state. In truth, they create a legalized dictatorship of 3 people. To consolidate their rule, they turn to the same tool Sulla once used: terror. Lists of enemies are posted in the forum, names of senators, equestrians, wealthy citizens, political opponents, and personal rivals. Anyone on the list is declared an outlaw. Their property is seized. Their lives are forfeit. Families hide behind locked doors as soldiers storm homes. Bodies lie in the streets. Rome becomes a city ruled by fear. Among the condemned is Cicero, Rome's greatest orator, whose severed head and hands are displayed in the forum at Antony's command. The triumvirs speak of restoring order, but first they drown the Republic in more blood. Meanwhile, Brutus and Cassius flee east, raising armies across Greece and Asia Minor. They gather the wealth of the East, the loyalty of governors, the support of Republican senators. Their force grows to nearly 100,000 men, a final stand for the old Republic. The triumvirs respond in kind. Antony and Octavian march east with enormous armies, determined to avenge Caesar. The stage is set for the greatest confrontation since Pharsalus. In 42 BC, on the vast plains of Philippi, two massive armies collide. Antony commands one wing, brilliant and relentless. Octavian commands the other, sick but determined, carried on a litter behind the lines. The battles, 2 in total, are brutal. Brutus drives back Octavian's forces in the first clash, but Antony overwhelms Cassius, who, believing all is lost, takes his own life. In the second battle, Antony outmaneuvers Brutus. Encircled, exhausted, with his men surrendering around him, Brutus commits suicide, the last champion of the Republic falling on his sword. With their deaths, the Roman Republic, already shattered, breathes its final breath. The triumvirate divides the Roman world. Antony takes the wealthy east. Octavian takes the west. Lepidus is pushed to Africa, power in title only. Peace returns, but it is a peace of sharpened knives. The alliance is temporary, the rivalry eternal, and ahead lies a final, decisive conflict, the showdown between two men who were once allies, Antony and Octavian, and a queen whose influence will reshape the world, Cleopatra of Egypt. The Republic is dead. The Empire is waiting to be born. With Caesar's killers gone, the alliance begins to rot. Lepidus is pushed aside, stripped of power. Antony drifts east, where he meets Cleopatra of Egypt, a powerful queen and a challenge to Octavian's ambitions. Octavian spreads propaganda, casting Antony as a traitor enthralled by a foreign monarch. Tension rises, armies gather, and a final confrontation looms. The Republic is dead in all but name. Only two men remain to decide what Rome will become.
With the second triumvirate shattered, Rome stands divided once more. Octavian rules the west, Antony commands the east, but their alliance is poisoned by suspicion, ambition,
and propaganda. Octavian claims Antony has betrayed Rome, seduced by Cleopatra, enthralled by Egypt, dreaming of a foreign dynasty. Antony's supporters answer that Octavian merely hungers for absolute power. The Senate, exhausted and fearful, sides with Octavian. War is declared, not against Antony, but against Cleopatra, marking Antony as a Roman fighting for an enemy queen.
In Alexandria, Antony and Cleopatra prepare for the coming storm. He is a veteran commander with fading influence. She is a queen fighting for her children's future and her nation's survival. Their bond is genuine, but it becomes a political weapon in Octavian's hands. Rome is told they dream of carving a new empire from the east, of placing Cleopatra's son, Caesar's son, on a throne above them all. To Octavian, this is the final justification. To Antony, it is the final insult.
Summer, 31 BC. Octavian's Admiral Agrippa seizes key positions along the Greek coast. Antony and Cleopatra are bottled up in the Bay of Actium. Disease spreads, supplies dwindle, morale cracks. Antony faces an impossible choice: break out or perish. He decides to stake everything on a naval battle. Before dawn, Antony's fleet pushes out of the bay. Massive, towering warships moving with slow, terrible grace. Agrippa's forces wait offshore, lighter and faster, ready to encircle the enemy. The battle begins with thunder. Rams collide, fire arrows streak across the sky, ships burn as soldiers fight on heaving decks. At the height of the chaos, Cleopatra's flagship suddenly turns south, fleeing the battle and heading for Egypt. Antony sees the signal and follows her. His fleet collapses without its commander. Octavian wins a victory that will reshape the world. Antony and Cleopatra retreat to Alexandria, where Octavian soon arrives with overwhelming force. The city falls. Antony, believing Cleopatra dead, falls on his sword, dying in her arms after being carried to her hidden chamber. Cleopatra, refusing to be paraded through Rome in chains, chooses her own death, the bite of an asp or the sting of poison, a final act of defiance against her conqueror. Octavian conquers Egypt, seizes its treasury, and returns to Rome a hero. The Senate honors him with a new title, Augustus, the Revered One. The Roman Republic is finished. An empire rises in its place. A single ruler now claims dominion over the greatest power on earth, and Rome will never be the same again. After decades of civil war, Rome longs for peace, but fears kingship. The memory of Caesar's murder still haunts the Senate. Augustus understands this fear. He does not seize power openly. Instead, he wraps absolute authority in tradition. The Senate still meets. Magistrates still hold elections. The Republic appears alive. Yet all meaningful power, military command, provincial control, and state finances rests with one man. Augustus calls himself princeps, first citizen, but he is emperor in all but name. Augustus refuses a crown. He wears no royal robes. He walks Rome as a citizen, measured, modest, deliberate. Behind the scenes, he controls the legions. He appoints governors. He commands loyalty through patronage, reward, and fear. Rome has not abolished the Republic, it has hollowed it out. Augustus reshapes the city itself as a symbol of renewal. Marble temples rise where brick once stood. Forums expand. Altars proclaim peace and stability. The Ara Pacis celebrates order after chaos. Public works provide jobs and purpose. Urban life flourishes. Augustus later boasts, "I found Rome a city of brick and left it a city of marble." With Rome stabilized, war recedes from daily life. Borders are secured. Rebellions are crushed swiftly. Trade flows freely across the Mediterranean. Merchants travel safely. Grain arrives reliably from Egypt. Generations grow up without civil war. This is the dawn of the Pax Romana, nearly 2 centuries of relative peace and prosperity. But peace comes at a price. Political opposition fades. Free speech narrows. Power becomes permanent. Rome gains order and loses its soul as a republic. Yet for most Romans, the bargain is worth it. The empire is stable. The streets are safe. The future feels secure. Thus begins Rome's greatest age. Peace does not make Rome passive. Under the Principate, expansion becomes controlled, strategic, and purposeful. Rome no longer conquers for survival. It conquers to secure borders, dominate resources, and stabilize trade. Each new province is not merely occupied, it is absorbed. After the defeat of Antony and Cleopatra, Egypt becomes Rome's personal domain. Its fertile Nile floods produce unimaginable quantities of grain. Its gold, glass, papyrus, and luxury goods enrich imperial coffers. Its ports connect Rome to Africa, Arabia, and the Indian Ocean trade routes. Egypt does not answer to the Senate. It answers only to the emperor. Control of Egypt means control of Rome's food supply, and thus control of Rome itself. Under Emperor Claudius, Roman legions cross the Channel into Britain. It is a land of dense forests, tribal resistance, and harsh weather, far from the warm, familiar Mediterranean world. The invasion is slow and costly. Forts are built, roads are carved through wilderness, tribes are subdued or destroyed. Britain becomes a testing ground for Roman engineering and endurance. Here, empire is not inherited, it is forged. Under Emperor Trajan, Rome pushes north across the Danube. Dacia is rich in gold, fiercely defended, and strategically vital. Trajan launches massive campaigns, immortalized later in stone reliefs. After brutal warfare, Dacia falls. Its mines pour wealth into Rome. Its population is absorbed, resettled, and Romanized. This conquest marks the greatest territorial extent of the Roman Empire. Conquest alone does not hold Rome together. Stone roads stretch across continents, straight, durable, relentless. Aqueducts carry water across valleys and into cities. Baths become centers of hygiene, culture, and social life. Ports, Warehouses and markets pulse with trade. Merchants, soldiers, officials, and ideas move freely. From Britain to Egypt, from Spain to Syria, Rome becomes a single connected world. 3 continents, millions of subjects, one imperial system. The empire is not just vast, it is organized, and at its height, Rome appears unbreakable. After decades of intrigue, assassination, and excess, Rome enters a rare age of wisdom. For nearly a century, the empire is ruled not by birthright, but by merit. Each emperor adopts his successor based on ability, not blood. The result is Rome at its strongest, richest, and most stable. This is the age of the 5 good emperors. Nerva, the healer of Rome, AD 96 to 98. Nerva inherits a wounded empire. Domitian is dead. Fear still lingers in the Senate. Rather than rule by terror, Nerva restores trust. He respects the Senate. He ends arbitrary executions, and most importantly, he adopts a capable general to secure the loyalty of the legions. His reign is short, but essential. Without Nerva, the Golden Age never begins. Trajan, the Emperor of Conquest, AD 98 to 117. Trajan is a soldier first, and Rome follows him gladly. Under his rule, the empire expands to its greatest size. Dacia falls, gold pours into Rome. Massive building projects reshape the capital. Yet Trajan is not merely a conqueror. He rules with justice, accessibility, and care for the poor. The Senate admires him. The army adores him. The people prosper. Hadrian, the guardian of the empire, AD 117 to 138. Hadrian understands a hard truth. Rome is too large to grow forever. He halts expansion. He strengthens borders. He travels relentlessly, inspecting provinces, reforming administration. Walls replace legions. Defense replaces conquest. Hadrian's Rome is secure, cultured, and carefully managed. Antoninus Pius, the peaceful steward, AD 138 to 161. Antoninus Pius rules quietly and magnificently. No major wars, no purges, no crises. Law is strengthened, justice is expanded, prosperity deepens across the provinces. He governs from Rome, trusting institutions rather than fear. Under Antoninus, the empire reaches perfect balance. Marcus Aurelius, the philosopher king, AD 161 to 180. Marcus Aurelius inherits peace, but faces chaos. Plague sweeps the empire. Barbarians press the borders. War returns. Amid suffering, Marcus writes Meditations, a guide to duty, restraint, and inner strength. He rules not with ego, but with discipline. With his death, the Golden Age ends. Power will soon pass to a different kind of ruler. The Golden Age. Under these 5 men, Rome reaches its peak. Stable borders, prosperous cities, unified rule. But history waits for no empire, and all golden ages eventually ends. When Marcus Aurelius dies in AD 180, Rome mourns a philosopher king. But for the first time in nearly a century, power does not pass by adoption, it passes by blood. His son, Commodus, ascends the throne. The choice will haunt Rome. Commodus has none of his father's discipline. He despises administration. He distrusts the Senate, and he craves adoration. Rather than rule, Commodus performs. He renames Rome after himself. He declares himself the reincarnation of Hercules. He fights as a gladiator in the arena, an act both shocking and humiliating. The emperor no longer leads the empire. He entertains it. Real power shifts behind the throne. Corrupt advisors, freedmen, and palace guards manipulate the state. Executions return. Informers thrive. The Senate lives in fear once more. Rome's institutions weaken as personal rule replaces law. The empire still looks strong, but rot spreads beneath the surface. By AD 192, even the palace turns against him. Commodus is strangled in his bath by a wrestler. The line of the 5 good emperors is broken forever. What follows is chaos. In a single year, Rome burns through rulers. Emperors are bought, murdered, and discarded. The Praetorian Guard auctions the throne to the highest bidder. Legions in the provinces raise their own candidates. Civil war erupts once more. The age of stability is over. Rome still rules the Mediterranean. Its legions still march. Its cities still glitter. But something essential has been lost. The illusion of permanence is broken. The death of Emperor Alexander Severus in AD 235 unleashes a nightmare. Rome does not fall all at once. It fractures. Over the next 50 years, nearly 23 emperors rise and fall, most through violence. Generals proclaim themselves emperors. Soldiers decide loyalty with their swords. The throne becomes a death sentence. Civil war becomes constant. Legions fight legions. Frontiers are abandoned as armies march on Rome instead of guarding it. Provinces are stripped bare to fund endless campaigns. Cities fortify themselves. Trust in authority collapses. The empire bleeds from within. Plague sweeps across the Mediterranean. Whole cities empty. Fields go unharvested. Armies shrink as soldiers die in their tents. The gods seem silent. To pay troops, emperors debase the currency. Silver coins become copper washed in lies. Prices skyrocket. Trade collapses. Barter replaces money. Urban life decays as inflation devours savings and wages. With Rome distracted, its enemies strike. Germanic tribes cross the Rhine and Danube. Cities burn, villages vanish. In the east, a revived Persian Empire captures Roman emperors alive. Rome's aura of invincibility is shattered. Authority dissolves. The Gallic Empire secedes in the west. A powerful eastern state, later called the Palmyrene Empire, breaks away. For the first time, Rome is no longer one. Maps are redrawn in blood. By the late 3rd century, Rome is barely recognizable. Its borders crumble, its economy fails, its leadership is unstable. This is not decline. This is survival. In AD 284, a hardened officer named Diocletian seizes power. He does not promise glory, he promises survival. Rome is fractured, bankrupt, and exhausted. Diocletian understands what others refuse to accept. The old empire cannot be saved. It must be remade. Diocletian makes an unprecedented decision. One man can no longer rule Rome. He divides the empire into 4 parts. 2 senior emperors, Augusti, 2 junior emperors, Caesares. Each governs a region, each commands armies, each answers to the system, not ambition. Rome gains order at the cost of unity. Diocletian restructures Rome's military. Mobile field armies respond to crises. Frontier troops fortify borders permanently. Command is tightened. Discipline is enforced. Civil wars decrease because rebellion becomes harder. The army stops choosing emperors. The state chooses generals. Provinces are divided and subdivided. Governors lose military command. Bureaucracy expands. For the first time, Rome becomes a true administrative state. Every citizen is counted, every field measured, every tax recorded. Freedom gives way to order. Diocletian confronts inflation head-on. He issues price controls, fixes wages, reforms taxation in kind. Grain replaces coin. The economy stabilizes, but at a cost. Markets stiffen. Punishments are severe. Life becomes regulated. Diocletian transforms the emperor himself. No longer first among equals, he becomes dominus, lord. Courts become ceremonial. Power becomes distant. Authority becomes sacred. The republic is a memory. The principate is dead. Rome survives, but it is no longer the Rome of Caesar or Augustus. The last civil wars. After Diocletian's abdication, the tetrarchy collapses into rivalry. Multiple emperors claim legitimacy. Armies march. Civil war returns. From this chaos rises Constantine, son of Constantius Chlorus, ambitious, calculating, and relentless. To rule Rome, Constantine must defeat Rome. The Battle of the Milvian Bridge, AD 312. Outside the walls of Rome, Constantine faces his rival Maxentius. On the eve of battle, Constantine experiences a vision, a radiant symbol in the sky, the Chi Rho, the sign of Christ. A message follows. In this sign, conquer. Constantine orders the symbol painted on his soldiers' shields. The next day, Maxentius is defeated. His army is driven into the Tiber. Rome falls without a siege. Constantine enters the city as its sole Western ruler. The Edict of Milan, faith made legal, AD 313. Rather than persecute Christians, Constantine protects them. The Edict of Milan grants religious tolerance to all and ends centuries of Christian persecution. Churches rise where prisons once stood. Bishops emerge from hiding. Christianity moves from the shadows into power. Rome's spiritual foundations begin to shift. Unifying the empire. Over the next decade, Constantine defeats rival emperors across the East. In AD 324, he stands alone. For the first time since Theodosius, the empire is unified under a single ruler. But Constantine understands Rome itself is no longer the future. Constantinople, a new Rome. On the ancient city of Byzantium, Constantine builds a new capital. Strategically positioned, heavily fortified, richly adorned, Constantinople is Christian, imperial, and eternal. The center of gravity shifts eastward. Old Rome becomes symbolic. New Rome becomes real. The Council of Nicaea, AD 325. Christianity now faces a different threat, division. Constantine summons bishops from across the empire. In Nicaea, doctrine is debated, argued, and defined. The Nicene Creed is born. Orthodoxy is established. Heresy is condemned. The emperor becomes the protector and arbiter of faith. The end of pagan Rome. Constantine does not ban paganism outright, but Christianity is favored, funded, elevated. Temples fade, churches dominate skylines, the cross rises where eagles once ruled. Rome is still an empire, but it is no longer pagan. The ancient world has ended. An empire on the edge. When Theodosius I rises to power, the Roman world is fragile. Barbarian armies press the borders. Civil wars still smolder. Religion divides cities, families, and even the army. The empire survives, but only just. Theodosius does not attempt compromise. He chooses transformation. Christianity triumphant. Under Constantine, Christianity was tolerated. Under Theodosius, it becomes law. In a series of decrees, Theodosius declares Nicene Christianity the official religion of the Roman Empire. Pagan sacrifices are banned. Ancient temples are closed or repurposed. The old gods fade from public life. For the first time in its history, Rome defines itself by a single faith. The Christian Church becomes inseparable from imperial power. Order through force. Theodosius rules with conviction and severity. When cities rebel, he crushes them. When generals challenge authority, he removes them. Unity is preserved not by consensus, but by command. Yet even his strength cannot reverse deeper forces. Two empires, one crown. Administratively, the empire has long been divided. Theodosius governs the east. A junior emperor rules the west. After crushing the last great civil war, Theodosius briefly reunites the empire. For the final time. Death and division, AD 395. When Theodosius dies in AD 395, he leaves the empire to his two sons, Arcadius in the east, Honorius in the west. This time, the division is permanent. No reunification follows. No single emperor will ever rule Rome again. Two very different futures. The Eastern Roman Empire, wealthy, urbanized, fortified, endures. Its capital, Constantinople, thrives for centuries. The Western Roman Empire, poorer, overstretched, militarily fragile, begins to unravel. Invasions intensify. Authority weakens. The West enters a slow, irreversible decline. Rome has not yet fallen, but its fate is sealed. A weakened half of an empire. After the death of Theodosius I, the Roman world is permanently divided. The East is wealthy, fortified, and governed from Constantinople. The West is poor, overstretched, and vulnerable. Its armies are underpaid. Its borders are porous. Its emperors are weak, often children or puppets. Rome still claims power, but no longer commands it.
Barbarians on the move. Beyond the empire's frontiers, a storm gathers. From the distant Eurasian steppes come the Huns, fast, brutal, and terrifying. Their arrival sends shockwaves through Europe. Germanic tribes flee westward in desperation. Goths, Vandals, Suebi, Alans. They do not come first as conquerors, but as refugees. Rome allows some to enter. It cannot control them. The Battle of Adrianople, AD 378. Before the final fall of the West, a warning goes unheeded. At Adrianople, Roman forces confront Gothic warriors. The battle is a disaster. Roman legions are surrounded. The Emperor Valens is killed on the field. 2/3 of the Eastern army is destroyed. For the first time in centuries, Rome suffers a catastrophic defeat by barbarian forces in open battle. The myth of Roman invincibility dies here. The Visigoths and the sack of Rome, AD 410. The Goths remain inside the empire, armed, unpaid, angry. Led by Alaric, they march on Italy. Rome, once the terror of the world, is defenseless. In AD 410, the unthinkable happens. The Visigoths enter the city. For 3 days, Rome is looted. Temples are stripped. Palaces are violated. The eternal city is humbled. It is the first sack of Rome in 800 years. Across the empire, disbelief turns into dread. If Rome can fall, what cannot? The Vandals and total humiliation, AD 455. The West never recovers. Decades later, another enemy arrives, the Vandals, masters of the sea, ruling North Africa. Rome has no army to stop them, no emperor to inspire resistance. In AD 455, the Vandals sack Rome again. This time, it is systematic.
Statues are torn down, treasures are shipped to Africa. Even the imperial palace is stripped bare. Rome is no longer a capital. It is a prize. The West in free fall. Each invasion weakens the empire further. Generals rule instead of emperors. Barbarian kings rule Roman provinces in all but name. The army is filled with foreign mercenaries loyal only to pay. By the mid-5th century, the Western Roman Empire still exists, but only on parchment. The end is no longer approaching. It is already here. Loss of territory. The West bleeds out. 5th century A.D. Death by 1,000 cuts. The Western Roman Empire does not collapse overnight. It shrinks. Province by province, Rome loses control, not always through dramatic conquest, but through exhaustion, betrayal, and neglect. Each lost territory strips away wealth, soldiers, and legitimacy. What remains is an empire in name only. Gaul, the fall to the Franks. Gaul had once been Rome's heartland in the west. Rich farmland, major cities, a vital source of recruits and taxes. But Roman authority weakens. Local generals rule independently. Imperial orders go unanswered. Into this vacuum rise the Franks. Originally Roman allies, they become kings in their own right. Roman administration dissolves. Latin law gives way to tribal rule. Gaul is lost, not with a final battle, but with a quiet transfer of power. Hispania, the Visigothic kingdom. Spain follows a similar path. Roman legions withdraw. Imperial officials vanish. Cities fend for themselves. The Visigoths, once Rome's enemies, then its mercenaries, now become its successors. They establish a permanent kingdom. Roman titles remain, but Roman control does not. Hispania slips from imperial hands forever. North Africa, the fatal blow. North Africa is Rome's lifeline. Its grain feeds Italy. Its taxes fund armies. Its ports connect the Mediterranean. When the Vandals seize the region, the consequences are catastrophic. Rome loses its breadbasket. Food shortages follow. The treasury empties. Without Africa, the Western Empire cannot sustain itself. This loss is irreversible. An empire hollowed out. With each province gone, Rome grows weaker. No money to pay soldiers, no land to recruit from, no authority to command loyalty. Barbarian kings rule former Roman lands openly. Emperors become prisoners in their own palaces. The Western Empire still exists on parchment, but nowhere else. The point of no return. Territory was Rome's strength, and now it is gone. The fall of the West is no longer a question of if, only when. Romulus Augustulus, the last emperor, A.D. 476. The end without a battle. By the mid-5th century, the Western Roman Empire is no longer ruled. It is occupied. Real power lies with barbarian generals commanding Roman armies. The emperor in Ravenna is a figurehead, ignored, irrelevant, and replaceable. And the last man to wear the imperial purple is not a man at all. He is a boy. A child on the throne. Romulus Augustulus is raised to emperor by his father, the general Orestes. His name is symbolic. Romulus, founder of Rome. Augustus, first emperor. But the symbolism is cruel. The boy rules nothing. He commands no armies. He issues no meaningful orders. Rome's empire is now a ghost wearing a child's face. Odoacer rises. Among the Federate troops is Odoacer, a Germanic commander. His soldiers demand land, payment long promised by Roman leaders. When Orestes refuses, the army revolts. They march on Ravenna. There is no great battle, no heroic last stand, only inevitability. The deposition. In AD 476, Odoacer enters the imperial capital. Romulus Augustulus is removed from the throne. He is not executed. There is no bloodshed. The boy is spared, sent into quiet exile, given a pension. The imperial regalia is sent east to Constantinople. Rome no longer needs a Western emperor. The empire ends silently. No decree announces the fall. No one in Rome fully realizes what has happened. But something ancient has vanished. The Western Roman Empire, which ruled for centuries, conquered continents, shaped civilization, is gone. Kings will rule where emperors once stood. Europe enters a new age. A world has ended. The Byzantine Empire. Rome that refused to die. Rome in the East. The Western Roman Empire had fallen. Its cities crumbled. Its emperors vanished. But in the East, Rome endured. Centered on Constantinople, New Rome, the Eastern Roman Empire survived, adapted, and transformed. Later generations would call it the Byzantine Empire, but its people never did. They called themselves Romans. Constantinople, the impregnable capital. Founded by Constantine the Great, Constantinople stood at the crossroads of Europe and Asia. Protected by massive triple-layered walls, fed by the sea, fortified by wealth, trade, and tradition. Where Rome had relied on legions, Byzantium relied on walls, diplomacy, and gold. For 1,000 years, the city would defy sieges that destroyed every empire before it. Justinian, the last great Roman emperor. In the 6th century, one man dared to restore Rome's lost glory. Justinian I. From his golden throne, Justinian launched ambitious campaigns to reclaim the West. North Africa from the Vandals, Italy from the Ostrogoths, southern Spain from Visigothic rule. For a brief moment, the Mediterranean was Roman again. The Code of Justinian. But Justinian's greatest conquest was not made with swords. It was written in law. The Corpus Juris Civilis, the Justinian Code, organized centuries of Roman legal thought into a single system. It would later become the foundation of modern European law, influencing nations centuries after Byzantium's fall. Rome still spoke through law. Hagia Sophia, heaven on earth. Justinian's most enduring legacy rose above Constantinople itself. Hagia Sophia, a cathedral unlike anything the world had ever seen. Its vast dome seemed to float, bathed in golden light. Mosaics shimmered like heaven-made stone. Justinian is said to have proclaimed, "Solomon, I have surpassed you." For centuries, Hagia Sophia stood as the spiritual heart of Eastern Christianity. A Christian Roman Empire. Byzantium was Roman in law and administration, but Christian in soul. Emperors ruled by divine authority. The Church shaped daily life, art, and identity. Greek replaced Latin. Ancient traditions blended with Christian theology. Rome had evolved. Sieges, shrinkage, and survival. Over centuries, the empire shrank. Arab armies surged from the south. Bulgarian and Slavic kingdoms rose in the Balkans. Crusaders betrayed Constantinople in 1204, sacking the city themselves. Yet Byzantium survived. Time and again it adapted, smaller, poorer, but unbroken, until one enemy finally succeeded. 1453, the fall of Constantinople. In 1453, Ottoman cannons shattered the ancient walls. After weeks of siege, the city fell. The last emperor, Constantine XI, died fighting in the streets, a Roman emperor dying as Rome had once demanded. Hagia Sophia became a mosque. Constantinople became Istanbul. The Eastern Roman Empire was no more. The last echoes of Rome. But Rome did not vanish. Its law shaped nations. Its language shaped science. Its empire shaped civilization. And for over 1,000 years after the West fell, Rome lived on in the East. Legacy of Rome, the empire that never died. Rome's empire is gone. Its legions no longer march. Its emperors no longer rule. Its banners no longer fly above the world. And yet, Rome is everywhere. From the capitals of modern nations to the laws that govern them, Rome's influence endures, woven into the foundations of civilization itself. Law, order from chaos. Roman law was built on reason, precedent, and structure. Concepts like legal equality, contracts, property rights, and citizenship all trace their roots to Rome. Modern legal systems, from Europe to the Americas, still echo the principles written by Roman jurists over 2,000 years ago. Rome taught the world how to govern justice. Language, words that shaped the world. Latin, the language of Rome, never truly died. It evolved into French, Spanish, Italian, Portuguese, and Romanian. It shaped English, filling it with legal, scientific, and religious vocabulary. Every day, Rome speaks through our words. Architecture, Stone made eternal. Domes, arches, columns, roads that still define city layouts. From the U.S. Capitol to European cathedrals, from courthouses to universities, Roman design remains a symbol of authority, permanence, and order. Rome built in stone, and its ideas proved even stronger. Engineering, masters of the material world. Aqueducts carried water across mountains. Roads connected continents. Concrete reshaped construction forever. Many Roman structures still stand today, outlasting modern buildings. Rome engineered the physical backbone of empire and set the standard for civilization. Christianity, from persecuted faith to global religion. Christianity spread across Roman roads, through Roman cities, protected by Roman administration. When Rome adopted Christianity, the faith transformed the empire, and the empire transformed the faith. The Church inherited Rome's structure, language, and reach. Through Rome, Christianity became global. Government, power balanced by law. Republics, senates, written constitutions. Rome's experiments in governance, its successes and failures, became lessons studied by future generations. Even modern democracies wrestle with the same questions Rome once faced. How much power is too much? How long can a republic endure? Literature, time, and culture. Roman historians shaped how history is written. Roman calendars organized time itself. Roman myths, philosophy, and values still echo in art, film, and thought. Rome defined what it meant to record the past and imagine the future. Rome lives on. Rome did not vanish. It transformed. It lives in our cities, our laws, our faiths, our words. Empires rise and fall, but Rome became something greater than an empire. Rome became a foundation. The empire that never dies. The sun rises over the ruins of the Roman Forum. Broken columns cast long shadows across cracked stone. Weeds grow where senators once debated the fate of the world. For over 2,000 years, Rome shaped human history. It rose from a village on the Tiber. It conquered the Mediterranean. It forged laws, roads, cities, and empires. Rome ruled through kings, republics, emperors, and faith. It adapted when it could. It collapsed when it could not. No empire, however vast, however powerful, is eternal. And yet, Rome never truly died. When its legions vanished, its laws endured. When its emperors fell, its ideas survived. When its cities crumbled, its influence spread farther than any army ever could. Rome became more than a state. It became an inheritance. Its language still echoes in our words. Its laws still govern our courts. Its architecture still defines power. Its calendar still orders time. Its faith reshaped the world. Every road does not lead to Rome anymore, but every civilization still carries a piece of it. Empires fall, ideas endure, and Rome lives on.